Now that this room has been full of positivity, hope, and connection, I will request our moderator to please continue with this engaging panel discussion. Over to you, sir.
So after those wonderful pitch documentaries, I think it's time to deliberate further on how the power of documentaries can be leveraged by brands, by by government, and how we can unleash that. So if you look at the documentary market globally, it's about 11 billion, and it might touch 16 billion by 2030. The growth rate is around 5.3%, on an annual basis. So it's a market which is growing. It's a medium which is growing, and viewers are on the look for honest stories that stay true to the content, that stay true to the subject. And if you see major platforms, if you see major OTT platforms, they all have a very strong collection around documentaries, which talk about different narratives, different stories. At the same time, when it comes to CSR, that again is a very evolving concept when it comes to the India. And there's almost 28,000 crores that has been spent on CSR initiatives by various brands and corporates. So that again needs to be communicated. So there is a lot of good work that our corporates do. There's a lot of good initiatives around various themes that we just spoke about that the corporates are contributing towards. But what's the communication there? What are the mediums that they are using to communicate those stories to their target audience? What are the stories that they are sharing with the people who know their brands? It's equally important. So is there a marriage in making in terms of documentaries and the work that the corporates are doing on the CSR? I think that's the theme that we'll try and explore today, as we get deeper into, because we have the representation from the government, we have some of the largest brands in India on the dais, so it will be a great discussion in my view, and I really look forward to that. So let's start the discussion with a very important topic, right? Today, building a brand with purpose is a critical element, and whatever surveys have happened, they've always said that even the Gen Z, millennials are all keen on spending on brands which demonstrate some sort of purpose and contribution to the society. So if that is the case, then how do you leverage communication as a medium to communicate to your target audience on what is the kind of work that you're doing on social initiatives, what is the kind of impact that you are having on the society? So I request Krishna to start and share her views.
Thank you. I'm actually going to give you a little bit of a background before we even start talking about CSR. I think today the path to purchase is not linear, and purchasing a product does not mean anything if you don't purchase it over a set of years. So I think let's get the business facts, first. So you would trust a brand which has been in India for 100 years or more than that, and even if the brand is not something that you like, but if you have to buy, you don't mind buying it. So I think it's important to distinguish the path to purchase from really what you like in brands. Having said that, now coming to what do really millennials or Gen Zs want. I find that very strange when we talk about them as if they are them and where are we. I think all of us, most of us, the discerning consumers who do read, who consume content, and then probably go and purchase or form an opinion. So for me, more than the purchase decision, it's the reputation. Do you think that a particular automobile company is a good company, or a beauty company is a responsible company? That's where our journey begins. So to your question on, is there a marriage? I think there are synergies. So at L'Oreal, for example, our CSR focuses on 3 E's. It's education, empowerment for some of the filmmakers who were focusing, and environment. So we have, we do have a 2% commitment that we do, earmark year after year. And we have been doing work in a very focused manner in environment. For example, we work in our home state in a very drought-prone district in Yavatmal in Maharashtra, where we do work with an NGO, and we are responsible for restoring that particular area so that the farmers farmers benefit from that. So it's not just improvement in agricultural output, but it's also in, it has an impact on children's education, on women who don't have to walk too far. I'm going to not give you another example, it just distracts, but I think what for me was exciting was to see that when you have work that goes on in environment, do look at what are the brands doing around the, around the world, in the country, and maybe the pitching has to happen at that level. If somebody is working on an environment project in Maharashtra that impacts farmers, there's a handful of them. And then there is the set of companies that are working on environment education and and empowerment. So there is that synergy already. So as part of the research for most documentary filmmakers, I would say that do that research as well, and I think that would be helpful. At L'Oreal, we also have brands away from the CSR budgets that invest in brand causes. So it's important to distinguish between the two, because the CSR function is bound by a set of rules and regulations that we abide by. So there is, and the budget is pretty much specific. It's 2% of what we have. So I would also say open up and look at what are brands doing. For example, we have brands like Maybelline that do mental health activations. L'Oreal Paris that does stand up against street harassment, that talks to bystander intervention for harassment. So I think it's nice to look for opportunities like that. So is there a synergy? Absolutely yes. Are millennials going to jump and go buy a brand because there is a brand cause activation that has happened with a Bollywood person? Maybe not. But that's something that I always keep in mind. But at the end of the day, the fact that there is a growing community and a growing confidence in the visual art form, I think that gives me a lot of confidence. And for that, I'm always glad to see what is it that we can really do. So yeah.
Thanks. May I request Amit to share his views on this?
Sure. I think the fact that the times how consumer look at brand has changed is a truth, right? I think all of us are aligned to that. There were times when consumers were buying because that's the particular brand that used to come to my home, and I've been buying because my father used to buy that, my grandfather used to buy that. It's a consistent thing in the house, right? That was the criteria more or less a few years ago. I think today consumers, one, of course, they are consuming a lot of content and all, and hence they want to buy brands where they can relate to. Right now, that could be an emotional connection or a cause that I stand for, or any other reason. But if I have to buy a brand, can I find a larger purpose with the brand? Do I associate that with brand? Is something that consumers are placing a lot of value on, right? And hence you see this journey of a lot of brands trying to find a purpose. What is the larger communication I can talk to, rather than just talking on what I deliver, right? So shampoo will be a shampoo, and a soap will be a soap, and a hair oil will be a hair oil, but can I tell a larger story? The second aspect is, I think this whole thing of corporate responsibility, much before it became a law, the companies who really felt that they should be doing it were already on this journey, right? It became as a mandate few years back, but the companies who really felt that they need to give it back to the stakeholders they are working with, they were already working on the journey, right? It just possibly it became a little bit of impetus after that law came in. So that's where we stand as on now. Now the question on this whole thing as a CSR and the whole communication, whether the story needs to be told and told more efficiently, absolutely, right? Is it today available under the regulatory framework, and I'm a lawyer, I can't stop myself from saying that, there is a problem. There is a problem in the sense that the law, the way CSR was started, and rightly so by the government said, listen, don't spend CSR funds on something which is directly associated with your brands. And here we are exactly talking about that, saying, can I spend CSR funds on brands? Right? So the challenge for most of us sitting here, when we even want to do a brand communication, is whether it will even qualify as a CSR or not. Right? And I think therefore, as a companies and as a framework, we need to become a little liberated, I think that's what she said, to allow few of these things to come in. Right? To say that trust companies, they will do the job of really creating the awareness, let them spend these funds, let them become a little liberal. Today, under our regulatory framework, there is a list of sectors or areas on which you can work. You can't move beyond that. Right? And there's a clear mandate that anything related to business is not CSR, right? So I think some of these things needs to be eased out. From a brand point of view, absolutely, and it makes a lot of sense for brands to associate, you know, I can give you an example of a brand called Nihar that we have, and the whole premises of Nihar is educate girl child, right? And there, it came from a insight of the TG of that brand, saying the TG of the brand really has aspiration that they could not get the higher education, their kids, particularly girls, should get higher education, and that's the cause that the brand really associates itself. We have been working with in the Hindi speaking belt for a very, very long period of time, really creating that impact, right? So yeah, the brand affinity therefore increases, but real purpose is to create real impact in the life of the people you're working with. So I think you have to keep this also in mind, that while you can create a brand affinity, what is the real purpose you are going to achieve? And some of the problems are very big problems, like education, water, all of us talked about. The fact remains, all the corporates are working in their own way. I feel there's a huge opportunity with the help of government to bring more synergy. Can all of us work together on some of these bigger agendas? Can there be a collaboration of this where we can create a larger impact? And that's where, if you talk of a documentary, if one company comes with a documentary rather than all of us coming together and talking of a problem of water and then solving it in a way, I think the impact will be done. So that's our initial thoughts.
Sure, we have a question for Prithulji on that, so we'll come to it. Prashant, your views.
Actually, it really helps that both Krishna and Amit have just laid out the challenges on CSR rules, but I just have three things to say. First is, you know, I think people's attention spans have become lower and lower. I mean, all of us, right? Because there is so much of content, our lives are really, really busy. So I think in this, and it's also been never cheaper to produce really good quality content, right? Like, you know, with a really good phone, not even an iPhone, you can produce, you know, good content, right? So, and there has been a proliferation of channels that everybody is trying to get attention. Forget about brands, everyone, whether you're a individual, whether you're a journalist, I think getting attention has never been easier, never been harder, right? So in that context, I think authentic, like I was saying earlier, authentic, powerful storytelling always helps, right? And particularly in the context of, if you have an authentic and powerful story to tell with a strong brand, which is linked to the product which you're selling, I think it's always powerful, right? And a classic example for us, our biggest brand is Surf Excel, and I've worked in detergents for many years. I think Surf Excel has been for the last 20 years consistently talking about how dirt is good. And particularly when children get dirty, they learn a lesson, and of course Surf Excel is there, right? Similarly, just giving an example on hygiene and sanitation, Lifebuoy has been around for many, many years, more than 100 years, speaking about the importance of hand washing. So I think if the story is being told in a very authentic and relevant and in a very contemporary manner, it's a new India where we are today. You can't say the same thing as you did 100 years back. You can say the same thing, but you need to make it more relevant for today. So I think authentic, powerful storytelling, whether it's a documentary or a short film or an ad, will always work, right? And right now it's more important than ever before that you have that. Now, particularly in the case of CSR versus non-CSR, and I think Krishna and Amit covered it really, really well. I'm just going to give you two examples. If you take the example of, let's say, gender, and I think one of the films, a lot of the films, in fact, barring the last one, there was an impact of gender somewhere. Even if you're speaking about water, you know, there is an impact particularly on women, right? So if I take an example of Dove, so Dove has always been working on raising self-esteem for girls. and in partnership with UNICEF, reached nearly 7 million girls across the country, educating them about self-esteem, the importance of knowing yourself, right? But if I were to do it on CSR, I cannot call it as Dove. It has to be a HUL-based brand. It has to be under Hindustan Unilever. So among all the issues around gender which we saw in India, very recently, and we worked a lot with the government, we realized that India is having an emerging waste problem, and people who are at the front line of managing our waste are actually Safai Sathis. Many of them are women, right? Women who are migrants, who come from underprivileged households, who are itinerants, right? And therefore, we've actually worked with both the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and the Ministry of Social Justice on how can we ensure that women who are part of the Safai Sathi community actually have access to government programs. So there we are actually using CSR funds to implement the program, right? Now to then, is there an opportunity for storytelling around Safai Sathis? Absolutely there is. The challenge which we always have is, if I have 1 rupee to spend on CSR, am I going to spend it on social impact, or am I going to spend it on creating awareness? It's a challenge, but I think today is, as Amit rightly said, is probably a really good first step to discuss maybe, where should the investment be going.
Sure, I think the right juncture for this. And Prithulji, your views on what is the power of documentaries, and I heard you speak about it briefly before this panel. But how do you see this partnership coming along? How do you see that the government and brands can work together to have this narrative laid out?
First of all, this session is more from the film part of the government, wherein the emphasis as the documentary filmmakers should probably be appropriated some funding through some mechanism from the corporate, be it CSR, be it some other initiative, be it without a real intent of promotion, but there has to be a support. Maybe you don't put in your brand in the finality, but so that's how here this session is, that this sector, which is very, very difficult to fund for them, because eventually they don't release into the cinema theaters anywhere, mostly, because that's where the major profits come from in the cinema industry. So this is also an industry, this, of course, with the advent of OTTs and also the other platforms, online platforms, they have found some appreciation space, also TV. But as it is, the whole sector, it requires more and more funding, and more stories are there awaiting to be told. I just also tell you that in India, we don't release documentaries in theaters. I have never heard that a documentary got released. Even the one which won an Oscars for India and made all of us proud, The Elephant Whisperers, that remained on an OTT, not a theatrical release. But everybody will be surprised to know that in many countries, documentary are a commercial release as well, and they are made with, if not equal, very, very similar budgets. Maybe they're of a much lesser duration, but the kind of impact and the kind of budgets they have for documentaries, it requires that kind of exhibition. Otherwise, where would the filmmaker get the money back? Otherwise, where does he plow the fund back into this thing? So this session initially is to invigorate that, and I'm so happy to hear from the other parts of the industry, and that he's finding some sense into it. And yes, of course, my friends already delved into one of the most important aspects as to what is the physical investments they're going to make, and this is a notional investment which probably will work as a object of change, I think, for the whole society. So yes, we will keep pitching until unless you find a mechanism, and of course, wherein you're talking about the frameworks, maybe if it's something is required to be done on part of that, we as the part of the Information and Broadcasting Ministry will definitely go ahead to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and think about these things to be included in the guidelines, if at all, because the kind of impact which the documentaries are set to make, it's much more than one can imagine. In fact, the documentary filmmakers, the difficulty is to fund to make them. B, it's also their wish that it also reaches the bigger audience. That's also not happening. That's just happening for people, at night when they're not finding a content, maybe a documentary hooks them up on the OTT or some other platform. I still remember that from our formative ages of growing up, and I think people in their 40s and 50s will remember that on Friday, on Doordarshan, there used to be a documentary, The Word This Week, and which used to delve into a lot of, these kind of things. I think after that there used to be a documentary, if I remember correctly. So documentaries were always very important somehow in the world over. I was discussing with them that now the documentaries are finding much more time and space with the people, with the viewers. As I told them that it has grown from 14%, it used to be in 2022. In 2023, the world over, the viewership of documentary has increased to 18.5%. So that means people are wanting to listen to these kind of stories. And I'm sure these documentary filmmakers will keep getting much and much more support as this viewership continues to grow. Of course, the business around it will continue to grow, and if support from this side also comes on, I think we'll have powerful stories we'll be able to see.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing your views. We'll just move on a little more on this. In terms of correlating CSR to a brand impact, and will the documentaries or creating more communication around it, help in any way? So, if I could request, Amit to share his views in terms of how we could use the power of documentaries to communicate all the work that you've done, and do you see a correlation between that and the brand impact? Or
No, I think I covered briefly what I said earlier as well, that when you're doing good CSR work, the story needs to be told. The story needs to be told for two reasons. One, so that the stakeholders that you are trying to address are aware that something like that is there. And at the corporate level, ultimately you can do limited up to that extent, right? And therefore, if you have powerful communication on that, you can get more and more people lean in towards it. Now, when I say more and more people, there could be all stakeholders, they could be beneficiaries, they could be government, they could even be other peers that who are interested in it, right? I will tell you the story. We have this program on sustainable farming, which is called as Parachute Culture. The program really focuses on teaching farmers on sustainable coconut farming practices. It's an intensive program where we engage with farmers for a period of 3 to 6 months, train them, ensure that their productivity of the farming is increasing, ensure that they are using more organic farming practices, they are using more sustainable farming practices. Now, from my impact, we can reach up to a set of farmers. And hence, it's important that we tell that story to a larger set of farmers who can then dial into my web page, my app, and take benefit of the program. So absolutely, if you really want to create an impact at the largest scale, the story has to be told, and documentaries could be a very, very powerful tools. Today also we use, whether you call it documentary or some other form of communication, we do use communication to tell what companies are doing, right? As I said, we need a collaborative approach over there. You need governments to come in, tell what are the experts. You need farming colleges to come in to say what more you can do in this if you want to create a larger impact on this. So yes, there's a direct correlation, and definitely it increases the brand affinity as well on somebody who is directly then using a produce to say this company has invested right at the farming stage and has seen through the value chain, and really ensure that the benefit of the brand also goes to the people who have invested into the value chain. So yeah, it's a fabulous story, and I'm sure each company will have similar stories. But coming to your point, whether documentaries can be used, the answer is absolutely yes. And yes, I still believe that a larger collaboration between all the stakeholders could help creating larger impact.
Thanks. Krishna, your views on this?
I think for brands and corporates that that work with a set of brands, the objective is always a little higher than an individual brand transactional kind of goal. So I would always speak, as a collective brand, And for me, I think when you look at a visual art form like documentaries, they can serve two purposes. One is they can showcase the truth, and two is they can showcase the potential. So I belong to the latter party. I think that if you showcase, say, a good program from, say, Marico or from Unilever or from L'Oreal, it should inspire other people to do more. It should inspire the beneficiaries to do more. People who have been benefiting from, say, one CSR program. So, for example, if they've benefited from a L'Oreal science scholarship, then. If somebody is seeing that documentary at the right forum, like something like this, then the talkability goes, right? I think, so for me, it's really about what is the potential that a brand-supported communication can achieve. That's the direction that I'm looking at. It's really otherwise, and I'm also going to share something unpopular. We do, as corporates, tend to also go to the other extreme, where we will make a film, will do a show, but the beneficiary count might be low or the impact might not be. So let's also kind of take responsibility for that. Not everything can be made into a film. Not everything has to be showcased. So it's really important to do the real work first. So it can't be just, okay, I've planted 2 trees, now let me make a video. Not at all. So watch out for that, and I am speaking to people who are working in film. So there is a tendency to say, "Arey, lighting बहुत अच्छी है, आंसू बस अभी टपकने ही वाला है." Let's just take that. I would say I would steer clear from a little bit of that drama and this need to maybe let me just showcase quickly. So I would say I would probably just warn the filmmakers, and also it's like a guardrail that I would try not to cross, to say let the good work happen first and show the impact, and then see how you can inspire the rest.
Well, I think the essence of documentaries, the very fact has to be true, has to be human, it has to be genuine. I think they only work when that happens. Prashant, for you the question is that, and I think it's correlated to what Krishna just mentioned, that possibly a video that you put out on CSR may not get as many views as a commercial that you would put out, right, from a brand standpoint. Do you really see that there is also a need from a corporate perspective as well to promote these videos? I mean, is there a need to have a separate budget for marketing or promoting these videos?
So I'm going to just give you 2 instances. I think the first instance I'm very happy to say was the first film, the first visual which came up which was on a water foundation. So here is an example of where, very similar to what Krishna said, I think we have done work over the past 20 years. We had reached a scale, and then we felt we could communicate it on national TV. So the Water Foundation of Hindustan Unilever, basically works across 10,000 villages, educates farmers on how to improve water conservation in 2 ways. One is just water saving by better utilizing their land, and number 2, rotating their crops such that very water intensive crop like cotton is followed up with something else where you can actually save water, right? So after 20 years, we are at 10,000 villages and have created water potential of about 3.2 trillion liters of water. Now, if you ask me, very few people outside HUL know this story, right? It's a CSR program. Very few people, right? So about 4 to 5 years back, we actually created a film which was talking about, this whole film about a shower in a village, right? Which then we also promoted on television, through CSR money, on television, through YouTube, and the kind of awareness it created was unbelievable. And we followed it up with a film on the importance of waste segregation, of a boy sitting inside a dustbin, about the why you need to segregate waste, right? Both of these films were funded by CSR at scale, but the commonality between the two is the fact that we had actually created a lot of impact in both of these cases, and we felt that we had the authority or the right to tell that story, right? Because if we had done it without doing the work beforehand, we would have been called out for being very superficial, right? And both these cases actually have won a lot of awards. In fact, it won a national award as well. The other example I'm going to give you is an example of just 1 year back, where it's a project which is growing, and we actually felt that, look, we need to invest behind it to get more partners to tell the story. We might not be able to expand it beyond Mumbai. So in Mumbai, we are operating what are called Subhida centers. There are 16 centers across Mumbai. We are building 9 more with the government. So we will have 25 by the end of next year. So Subhida centers are primarily only in slums. So you will not see it in, you will not see it anywhere near Pedder Road, for instance. You will find it in Dharavi, in Kurla, in Govandi, for instance, which are all-in-one sanitation centers. So you have public toilets, you have drinking water, you have showers, and you have a laundromat, completely run by women and from the community, right? And the really good part is it's a public-private partnership. So government gives the land, HUL invests the money. We also have HSBC and GSW as co-funders. And we realized that, look, we are not it's a great CSR project. The government is really appreciated in saying, look, can you please expand it more and more? But we realized that, look, we are not a toilet construction company, we're an FMCG company, right? And that's where we decided to make a film just to tell the story of Subhida. And it actually got featured at Cannes last year. And since then, what's been happening is that we have other cities reaching out to us saying, look, can they replicate Subhida in their cities? And we have made it very clear that, look, we cannot construct it for you, but we can give you all the material that we have and we can support you, right? So here is an example where actually good storytelling has helped us to expand our impact, right? So I think these two lenses are very important. One is you might have made an impact and you feel you have the authority to tell that story. Second is, as Sir also rightly mentioned, where you want to raise awareness around a problem, right? And I don't think we should get stuck about documentary filmmaking. I think it's about good storytelling. Sometimes that storytelling could be half an hour, sometimes it could be 5 minutes, sometimes it could be even 90 seconds. But I think generally in the social impact space, I really don't think you can tell a story in 30 seconds, right? So I think a minimum of 2.5 minutes is really needed to build that context. So I think the filmmakers will be quite happy to hear that.
Thanks. Well, on a lighter note, I think the budgets that some of the pitches I saw, if you reduce one commercial a year, you would end up making 20 such films. Sir, for you the question is, the government does a lot of work, a lot of good work. There are a lot of, communications that the government requires in terms of promoting a particular state, promoting a particular initiative. Do you see documentaries, a powerful medium for the government itself, in terms of communicating the good work that they do?
So in fact, we have a government institution called CBC under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, which stands for Communication, Central Bureau of Communication. So that is the work of that department, that whatever initiatives of development have been taking place across the country, it has to be documented and shown to people. But I would say that all what we are doing or through this or whatever we're talking here is more for your own promotion, is to show that this is what we have done. What we feel the documentary filmmakers at their heart come up with is not promoting anything. That is a selfless awareness they're trying to raise for a particular thing. And that is what matters, we can always go and advertise ourselves, and we always do. That will always remain the primary focus, because after all, this has to keep going on. But somewhere down the line, we have to realize of important things in the process of our own development. Wherever it is lacking, we have to put our attention span on that. So there, I think the government also recognizes that, and somebody was saying that the government doesn't do anything, but I think government do support documentary filmmaking. There was a unit in which we are sitting right now, Films Division, which was primarily documenting for the government whatever is happening around, not just the work of CBC, but also whatever is the society is undergoing, whatever is the environment is undergoing, which is for a common good. So that was being documented. Many of the documentary filmmakers were associated with Film Division. And in fact, we all have grown up with that Ek and Anekta, this thing. It was not meant for promoting anybody, but it is stayed on with our hearts that we, after all, we are all Indians. Who will put that spirit in you? These documentaries are a very, very vital medium for that. Well, let's not forget that, and let's not get lost in the commercial bit of it. And so that is why in fact, I'm so happy that some of the documentary filmmakers are now aware of the other initiatives that the government has taken, that grant of incentives under foreign co-productions. So if if the co-productions are under between two country co-producers where we have a treaty existing, like currently India has treaties with 16 countries, so one of them was co-producing under that and getting a grant up to 30 crores. I mean, that's the kind of, we have not said that the documentaries cannot get more. We have not differentiated between a commercial film and a documentary. So the government is trying to understand, but then broader discussion here, which I think that everybody should realize that this has to come about and this has to fit somewhere. That yes, you are working physically for some set of people, but how will you change the mindset of all the people? That's also one of the corporate social responsibilities. That is why we are trying to marry it, maybe, you know. So that's, as we began the discussion, I think it had began with the difference between Gen Zs and us. And I think the raising the consciousness of Gen Zs, what we call, even us, through a powerful narrative about a subject is much more than by just trying to advocate what we have done and what we have done. I think that that has to be sort of differentiated upon.
Thank you. So before we open this up for the audience, one final question to all of you. We heard all of this. You saw some of the powerful narratives that came through. If in the future you had this one opportunity to use the power of documentaries to tell a brand story, which is the theme that resonates the most to you? Each of you, if you could please share that.
Agriculture. I think for me, I can't remember which one, but someone who spoke about agricultural practices. We forget that we are an agro-based economy largely, and I think the potential there is huge. Farmers have been largely misrepresented by this medium. Yes, there are, of course, some films that have been, but I feel like they've really bordered on either drama or some really non-agricultural based narratives. There is a huge potential to talk about the success that some of the, catalysts have had. So whether it's that gentleman, in Rajasthan, who has found a very ingenious, very creative way of, conserving water, or whatever, like something like what we are doing in Maharashtra. Sorry for the plug, but I think agriculture is a very, very cool theme. With no disrespect to sports, which I think is the second coolest, but I think agriculture.
Sure. Thanks. Amit, your thoughts?
The short answer will be water, for simple reason of the magnitude of the issue that we are facing, not only in the country but possibly in the world too. And enough work is already happening, but I think a lot more needs to be done for the normal consumer and all of us to take note of it and then kind of put a sincere effort towards it, because this is a problem which is staring at us and can really have a devastating effect. So I think this needs to be solved with some degree of urgency. So I will pick up water.
Sure. Thanks.
I feel more I hear everything is interconnected, but I think the space of climate solutions, and I think the government also has started a really good platform called Mission Life, which is lifestyle for environment. I think it's only in the infancy. So anything to do with climate solutions completely, whether it's agriculture, whether it's in water, whether it's in circularity, I think solutions is very important because everyone is getting more and more aware that climate change is here. But solutions is more critical in my mind. And particularly the Indian context, right, which is what also Mission Life talks about. I think the fact that the Indian way of living is actually we use less materials, right? So around that space, I think that's a huge space.
Sure. Sir, any your picks?
Carrying from Prashanth, we have a Mission Life package also here of films which are talking about that, trying to sort of raise the consciousness of all what we are talking about, the environment, the lifestyle for environment. So I'm so glad for this discussion. It has been really enriching. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we'll just spend some time taking some questions from the audience, and just keep me honest with the time, please. How much time do we have for this? Yes.
One small thing, carrying on from what Arthi said, it would be wonderful that if we have some kind of a space that nurtures the documentary, not just celebrates the documentary, because where we falter at the world stage when we go to compete, when we went to La Rochelle after receiving the Sunny Side of the Dock Award for this very film at Dockish Kolkata, and Shantida is sitting there. He was instrumental in setting up Dockish Kolkata, and human service for the documentary in the last 20 years they have done. And they are struggling for support. And that is an institution that gets Discovery, that gets National Geographic, BBC London, they get Arte France, Arte Germany, NHK, and they get us mentors like Adru Stonis from Lithuania, who was the head of the international jury here at MIFF this time, who have nurtured us for the last 7 times we've been there, 5 films we've pitched, 3 awards we've got. Where we are getting stuck? Why did we never have a co-production till date? Not because we are inexperienced. I've lost my hair and the rest of them are growing very fast. Doing the documentary, I've never done a day job. I've only invested in the documentary. Why? I've got 3 national awards and at least 30 other awards from India and abroad. Point is, they say that you find the resources to at least take it to a level where you can come in as a co-production and compete at their level. Because when we went for the pitches at La Rochelle, I was like, my God, this is the level of pitching. Those guys have spent years documenting and then they come and pitch, saying that we are in production, early production. We think that, oh my God, that kind of money they've already put in, इसमें तो हम 2 फिल्म बना लेंगे, नहीं बनेगी. Then it doesn't go to the global stage. So can we set up with the government facilitating that and all of you on board, so that my people, our people, with Shantida's help, with the government pitching in, a common platform where the documentary can be nurtured. Where we falter is the baby steps for development funding, which is very little, for the pre-production, so that I can produce a trailer that can compete at Cannes or Tribeca or some other good forum like IDFA. That takes years.
So, you people just overlooked one thing. There was a talk about agro, there was environment. Let me tell you, we Indians, that's my conception. I don't care, I don't bother what others say. Shekhar Kapoor had made a film, a feature film on water. And what it stated was that for digging low grounds, going down the villages and deeper grounds, making a bottle of Coca-Cola robs many millions, but who cares, who bothers? OTT, everybody says, and there are many people crying that I don't have this, I don't have, my film is shown in BBC, I'm an England BBC maker, but I make films for India, still in Delhi, but no Indian has ever watched the film in the last 10 years. I'm a filmmaker, and this, and that. OTT is only bothered about their things. Yes, when you go to other platforms, there is curving for the documentary. When you make films for this will be cut, that will be cut, you need a censor board, you don't need to put the child actors, otherwise you have to showcase it to OTT and theaters and Amazon. We need such and such certificate. Forget about that. Shekhar Kapoor says, has Coca-Cola, aren't people consuming Coca-Cola or different mineral waters or water in the sake of every industry is thriving. Do you mean to say Coca-Cola bottle? You telling us something that Cigarette is injurious to health, people stop it. Tobacco, stop it. There are so many refinements. I know the society is changing, right? My factory used to produce soap powders, and then came Godrej. I'm sorry, we were manufacturing bars. Then Vijay Mallya came with whiskeys. So our manufacturing in Maharashtra got shut down. My 3 factories got shut down. Today we are on the roads. Today, looking at the film industry, I don't know who goes to work and who really gets the work. And as she said, बहुत हो गया नाटक ये वो आंसू बस आंसू बहने वाला है, सूरज निकलने वाला है, टाइगर आने वाला है. All crap we have been listening for many years. There's no appropriate action.
Thank you.
I represent the other side. I worked as a VP in an investment bank, and I've been in CSR boards. Okay, so today what was what I was very happy to see was that there is curation of things that could potentially be supported by corporates. I wish we had that when I was sitting on the board. Now I'm not. Now I've become a filmmaker, but I was on corporate guy before. You know, and like typical conversation would be like, क्या करेंगे CSR fund से? अच्छा, women करना चाहिए, नहीं education करना चाहिए, conservation करना चाहिए, environment का. So EE आएगा, economics, empowerment, education, sanitation, in सब में, and we will not know which project to select, and we will get audited also. So if we had the facility to have a curated set of projects that we can go, that the government could kind of tell that, like, see, these are the projects that we have curated. If you are interested, come and fund it. That would make this governance so easy for us sitting on CSR boards to make our decisions. So it's a great initiative. I wish there was, the NFDC website had a /CSR fundable projects, right? Like that could connect both of it. It would solve a lot of the problems. Wonderful idea. Thank you.
Thank you for the suggestion. Thanks.
See, most of the documentaries, okay, it's taken against the government or to changing the government or to allow the government to go in a correct direction, okay. And my question is, how it's peoples of India, most of in the place, it's against privatizations, okay, and corporates, okay. How I as a student believe corporate will allow me to do a ma'am told like agriculture, documentary and agriculture, most of land be privatized here in India by corporates, okay. If I take on the documentary on it, you guys allow me to do it or not? I have a big question on it. Because you guys come and talk which make me more competitive. Art is not competitive for us, which SRT tells me, teaches me. So I have a big question on it. I need a clarity.
Let me start answering so that, you know, let me grab this time. So, see, documentaries are made out of passion. That is a given fact that every one of us should take it, because the kind of consciousness the person feels, he certainly, you know, wants it to be carried forward, and the word should also wake into it. That's the whole perspective. It can be of any issues. It can be about social issues, environmental issues, historical characters, anything. What is the life of a person? What he's essentially saying is that, you know, anything is sort of, you know, getting into a controversy or any issue. See, I would also like to answer part of your question by saying that, you know, whatever steps we take, we know that we have to take more steps. So nobody shies away that there is a need for improvement. So we would always come up with a fact that yes, we can improve more, and if we say that with courage and with also accounting for the fact that whatever has been done, people will always appreciate it and accept it. So I don't think so she or any other company should have a problem in saying that, you know, this is what is lacking, and let's all together as corporates, as individuals, as human beings, as Indians, as world citizens, should start working for it.
Couldn't have put it better, so I have nothing more to add. I think except that, you know, as filmmakers, and I've studied film about a couple of decades back, and I think it's good to have this angle. It's it shows that you're very passionate about something around farming, something around agriculture. So please do not be deterred by whatever you think are the challenges. The answer to his question when he asked me what's your favorite of this, my answer was agriculture, because it's not spoken enough about. So that's your cue. If you look at the documentary space, women empowerment is the most common or most popular subject. Fewer people are making films about agriculture that has a very good connection with farming practices, with with increasing productivity. So that's where my answer was. But I'm very happy that this fire in the belly is there. So don't let that ever go. And all the very best to you.
One question at the back here. One.
Yeah, this is absolutely the last one.
So just a quick question. You've spoken about the CSR and the brand funding. So if as documentary filmmaker looking for funds, how do we distinguish when we come to a corporate, if agreeable, how would we know which one to apply for? Would it be a CSR? Because CSR sometimes is limited to a 2-year project or a profit-related project. So just, I don't know if that's a different panel altogether, but just a little bit on that. I think a little confusion there. Sorry.
So first of all, CSR is not a profit-making project, right? Typically, it is more than 2 years and longish commitment. Any areas which are identified by particular corporate, like we talked about education, we talked about water, we talked about sustainable farming, if there is an interlock there with any documentary, then certainly I think the corporate can consider it, and it can be integrated with the brand storyline.
I just want to add 2 points. I think thank you for asking that question. And number one, it's depending on the story you want to tell. I was a brand manager on Red Label, and we did work with documentary filmmakers talking about Red Label at the end of the day. So it depends upon the story you want to tell. If you feel that you want your story to be associated with a certain brand, whatever that brand is, you can reach out to them. As Amit rightly said, that if you feel that you would want it to be associated with the corporate and not with a particular product, then maybe reach out to CSR. But I think there is, and I think both Amit and Krishna will know this much better than me. There are 2 riders you have to just keep in mind. That any project more than 1 crore requires you to have, by the government, requires you to put out an impact report, right? So it's not philanthropy. I think more and more CSR is becoming less about signing a check, which is what it probably was many years back. I think more and more it's becoming about taking a project which can have an impact. Because at the end of the day, you're always under scrutiny of your investors, your shareholders, the government, documentary filmmakers, right? So any project more than 1 crore requires you to publish a very, very sharp, independent impact report at the end of the year, which has to be published on your website. So if your documentary also is looking to make an impact, so I would really encourage you to think about what is the impact it's going to make beyond just telling that story, right? So this documentary is going to be showcased at ABC, so many people are going to see it. That always really helps, number one. And number two, I think sometimes it becomes, so the advantage of CSR is that it's funds which you have to spend every year. So I think many times for a filmmaker, it's also about the timing. That if you're going to go in January, chances are it's going to be very, very difficult. I think the good time to go really is in April, when the new financial year is starting. Some of these projects are being discussed and debated, and if you reach out to somebody, look, the best thing which they can do is discuss it and say, okay, look, it doesn't fit us, right? And that's all. I mean, anything you want to add, Amit and Krishna, you know this better.
I'm just going to give you like a cheat sheet. So a good place to start would be to look at some of our websites. Almost all big corporates today in India have a section called CSR. We do put out everything about the projects that we work on, and watch out for the NGOs that we work with. So I think that becomes a good starting point for you, because while there is a story, the impact that we're looking for, that is so far been done very well by the NGO sector. So look out for NGOs as well. It's not, filmmaking, while it's a very solo profession, for it to go to the next level that we are wanting in terms of impact, in terms of reach, we need a couple of friends. So friends in the government, friends in NGOs, you know, those of us in corporate wherever we can. So I think it's a collective effort. So, but thank you for the question.
I just want to take last minute. You know, I'm itching to kind of address the point, because suddenly this debate became you versus us debate, which is not the right way to end this panel. I just want to say this, right? All of us are working as a part of this ecosystem. As much consumers are important, as much business is important, as much government is important, and all of us are working in that ecosystem. And see, in any ecosystem, you will always have one or two bad actors. Now, making a position based on one or two bad actors is not okay. I would just leave that thought there. And today, corporates are very responsible, right? If you raise an issue, they are ready to take it head on, right? At least I can say with some degree of confidence, my current employer and my previous employer, you know, and L'Oreal, you know, we can say with degree of confidence that companies, if you kind of raise an issue, they are responsible to address it. Whether it will be addressed immediately, I am not saying that, but are they ready to listen? The answer is absolutely yes. So please see it as an ecosystem rather than you versus us debate. I think we can make more positive impact to the lives of people and the lives of the communities that we're working with. Ultimately, all of us are important. We are living in a democratic world. So I just wanted to say that point. Thank you.
Thanks, Amit, as sir said, bridging the gap. You know, but I think I would also like to end this on a positive note that look, conversations are important to be had. Conversations are important to have on matters which need some attention, need some action. And I think this is a great step in that. I think we should, it's kudos to the organizers, sir, and all the people involved in organizing this session, that at least we are having a debate here. And then there are some useful tips for all the filmmakers here, which they can go back and reflect upon. So all the best to everyone here. I hope you like the session, and I'm thankful to all the panel members, for sharing their views and so honestly. So it was a great learning experience for myself as well. Thank you.
On that note, we would like to put an end to this enticing, engaging, and a very encouraging session.
I'll just also take one more minute to thank him, because I saw this door opening and people coming in and in. Nobody went out. So all because of you and the panelists here, extremely clear views. I think it was a very moving session. This was a new thought. I don't think so this kind of a thing has been there, but I'm sure your documentaries have made them to think about it in some form or the other. So I think it's the first step. Maybe they would ask something for the government to chip in for. They would also ask their peers, as they've already said that their website has something about CSR. Look it up, think about it. So I think it's a great first start, and I thank all of you here and all of you there also to be a part of it.